Okay, so this is recording now. Let me just find my second. Okay, let me just activate my. All right, sorry for the delay, everyone. I hope you can see both my camera as well as the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah,
Right.
all good.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
All right, so I think I will start off immediately because we are already 10 minutes late. So once again, I apologize for the tardiness. I'm Dr. Chen. I am the head of the Jeffrey Sachs Center as well as currently the program leader of the MSDM or joint program leader of the MSDM. And I welcome all of you today to this preview of the Masters in Sustainable Development Management, which is a sort of flagship program for both my center, the Jeffrey Sachs Center, as well as Sunway University. So I understand that right now we have a mix of potential students as well as some of the staff from the various departments that are interested in knowing some details about the program, what is the philosophy behind it, how do we run it, details such as timetables and fees. So I'll go through all of these questions first. I'll go through my slides first, and then we'll go through some questions from the audience after I go through the details. Because what you may find is many of the answers to your questions, I will probably be answering in subsequent slides as I go through, shall we say, the frequently asked questions about this program. So let me just start off with the scope and objectives of the program. What you are seeing on the screen here is sort of the text that we give to to the MQA, which is the Malaysian government, as well as to the various documentations that we put together. But what I want to get across to all of you is that the main aim of the MSDM is that we are based off of a skeleton of a management program. So in other words, on a sort of fundamental level, this master's is a management type master's, similar to Masters in Business Administration or MBA. But we are trying to, on top of that skeleton, inculcate quite a bit of interdisciplinary ideas because the main driving force behind this master's program is sort of an outcome of Sunway's, shall we say, dream that we are able to educate individuals who not only tick boxes of the various kinds of sustainability initiatives that are coming down both from the government as well as from institutions like Bank Negara and Bursa Malaysia, but you understand why those boxes exist. So in other words, to give an example, we wish to educate or to inculcate in our students an understanding of why the carbon cycle exists, more so than what do you need to do to cut your carbon emissions, if you know what I mean, right? So why is it that we have this issue with carbon? What kind of carbon is a problem? And why do we have this problem in the first place, right? So the broad knowledge base here is referring to not just sort of the philosophical or managerial understanding of the problem, which is what we will do, but also the scientific basis or the technical basis behind such questions, right? Now, just to introduce who are the people who are running this program as well as the center. So once again, I am the head of center, as well as the MSDM core program leader. We have as our chairman of the center, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. He will be coming, for example, in January to meet all of us as a part of his commitment to the center. But I also want to mention that we have Dr. Sharare Ibrahim. She is the program leader of our PhD program. So between the three of us, we effectively make sort of the higher level decisions for the running of the various education components of this center. Aside from that, we also have various academics in different fields. So we have Professor Agamutu here, who is a waste management expert. We have Dr. Yeo Kiat Ho, who works on batteries and energy systems. Tan Sri Dr. Nurul Aino, she is an ex-government servant, the ex-Secretary General of three pretty important ministries: the Ministry of Women and Development, Women and Family Development, the Ministry of MOSTI, Science and Technology, as well as the Ministry of Higher Education. So that was her last ministry before she retired and joined us. Then we also have Dr. Sarah. She's more on the social side of things. So her expertise is in education and neocolonization, or decolonization of the education syllabus. As well as finally, we have Dr. Abu. So he is an expert in microfinance. So what I hope you see from this mixture of academics here is that we have quite an interdisciplinary mix of individuals who are tasked with delivering the different subjects that we have in the MSDM. And I'll talk about that in a second. Before I forget, just to explain my expertise as well as Dr. Pur Ibrahim's expertise, I am a plant scientist by training. So I do things sort of the biology side of things, things like what is the carbon cycle in the natural sense of the term, right? Where does photosynthesis come in? And then we have Dr. Pur Ibrahim, who is a land management expert. So she talks about, how to use big data and AI to determine what humans are doing to the planet, stuff like that. We also have adjunct and visiting academics who teach in our program. So these they're not based in the JSC, but they help teach some of our other programs that we don't have the expertise for. Dr. David Gabriel, he is a GIS satellite mapping expert. So he talks about how to use satellite systems to figure out how much carbon is being released in forest fires in Siberia, for example. Then we have Dr. Lim Jaja. She is a supply chain management expert. Dr. Sagatevan, his expertise is in biodiversity. So he runs a bunch of, shall we say, biodiversity labs with lots of specimens from various kinds of animals. And then we have Dr. Emiliano Bosio. So he is more on the social side of things, right? So he works on global citizenship, the concept as well as the consequences of a globalized world. Moving on, lastly, we also have lecturers who are in the university but not in the JSC. Professor Liao San Lun, who teaches information technology and smart technology. Dr. Sally, who teaches research methods. Dr. Wong Chin Huat. So if those, or Professor Wong Chin Huat, I should say, those of you who may have seen him, who think he looks familiar, you may have seen him on Astro Awani during Malaysian election times, because he is a political commentator for the Malaysian political system. We have Dr. Ye Kim Ling. So Dr. Ye Kim Ling is an economist. He is one of the one of the members of the Economic Advisory Council that's advising Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. And then we have Tan Seng Lee, who is one of our lecturers for finance, for example. Right. So we have all these lecturers, both within the JSC, those who are associated with the JSC, as well as those who are from the Sunway University in general, lecturing in our program. So what are the subjects? Or maybe will start with what is the structure of the program, right? We currently have a system whereby in order to graduate, every student needs to achieve or complete 42 credit hours. In order to do that, you need to complete 14 subjects, each of them 3 credits, consisting of 7 core subjects, 3 research subjects, and 4 electives. Choosing from, it should be 6 rather than 7, but you choose 4 electives from a list of electives. One thing that's important for me to explain about our study length is that the minimum study length for this master's program is 12 months, and the maximum length is 3 years. The reason why there's this big, shall we say, range is because it really depends on how many subjects you want to take per block. And I will talk about that in a second. What I am trying to say is that we give students the freedom to choose the speed in which they wish to complete the subjects within this window. For example, if you are an individual who is quote unquote a full-time student, in other words, you don't have any other major responsibilities, you are most likely able to finish your studies in 1 year, because what you effectively will have is that you will have an inverted week. Your weekends, effectively, you'll be studying almost all the time, or you'll be attending classes all the time, and then on your weekdays, you'll be free to as if it was a weekend, right? If you are a working adult, on the other hand, as you will see in a few slides, it might be better for you to take a slightly slower pace, and then it will take you about at most 2.5 years to complete your program. Right? And I'll talk about the maths and how this works in a second. But I guess more importantly, what are our intakes? So we have a rolling intake system, and there are 3 intakes in a year: January, March, and September. Why March instead of June? Once again, I'll explain that in the next few slides. Now, what are the subjects? Right? I said you have 7 core, 3 research, and 4 electives. Now, what you see on the screen now in blue on the left are the 7 core subjects. And what you will notice is that if you look at the wording, right? Finance, corporate sustainability, economics, social entrepreneurship, management and operations, the vast majority of these subjects will not look out of place in a traditional MBA, right? And that's intentional. What we are trying to structure our program around is the idea that when you come out of this program, you have the basics of these various managerial skills, with the concept of sustainability embedded in them, as most MBAs today will have in some way or another. There are 2 subjects in this core list, though, that would be a bit different. The first would be the Introduction to Sustainable Development. Now, this is referring to the Introduction to Sustainable Development Goals, which are a specific, defined set of achievements that various nations and various governing bodies are meant to achieve. These are the famous 17 SDGs. So that subject will talk about what do they mean, what are the targets, what are the basis of which these 17 goals exist. And then we have Earth Climate System, which is a subject that is referring to, if you want, climate change, right? So why are we in the state that we are in? Why are we concerned about the sustainability of our actions? Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So what happens next is that at the bottom you have 3 subjects, which are the research subjects, research methods, research projects, 1 and 2. The way that this works is that you first do research methods as a introduction to the concept of doing research, right? So what is a hypothesis? What is a quantitative versus qualitative research what are quantitative versus qualitative research data, for example, and what are the tools that you would use to analyze the data as such. Then after doing research methods, you will do your research project 1, where you put together your proposal or the research project that you would like to do, as well as find a supervisor who will guide you through the process of doing the research project. Right. Then in research project 2, you do the research project. So in other words, in the first subject, which is research methods, you are educated on what goes into the development of a research project, or what are the considerations that you need to take into account. In research project 1, you then go off and put together a plan to do a research project, and in research project 2, you actually carry out what you have planned in the subject prior. So those are your core subjects, right? These are the subjects you have to do and you have to pass. Then on the right, these are the elective subjects. So again, you have to choose 4. I have to make a bit of a correction. In the next year, biodiversity and sustainable forestry will be combined into 1 subject. So you have an option of 6 subjects, and you can see you have sustainable management, agriculture, it will be biodiversity and forestry, smart tech, and energy systems. Right. Governance is, just to clarify to everyone, the governance here is referring to sort of politics and government, right? So the lecturer here would be Professor Wong Chin Huat, as well as Tan Sri Nurul Aino. And what they will do is they will give you a walkthrough of what are the considerations that goes into, shall we say, dealing with political systems and government systems when it comes to trying to implement sustainable development. Now, what does the timetable look like, right? So you have all these subjects. How do they interact with your plans, as it were? Let me first describe the structure of the MSDM from the highest level. So we are referring to the idea of, we have 3 semesters in a year that are of equal lengths. I know technically you would make them a trimester, but let's not get into the details. So we have 3 semesters in a year. Each semester is divided into 2 blocks. Right? So these are, if you look at the first column, semester 1, 2, and 3, then you see blocks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just to repeat myself, we divide the year into 3 semesters. Each semester is divided into 3 blocks. Each block is 7 weeks, right? So a semester is 15 weeks because we have 7 weeks, a 1-week break, and then another 7 weeks, right? So, and then between each semester, there's also a 1-week break. Within each of your blocks, you can take up to 3 subjects, right? And this is, you can't take any more because Malaysian government rules prevent you from taking too many classes within a certain time period. So let's look at block 1. So this is the timetable for 2025. The subjects in black that you see here are the core subjects. So if I go back 1 step, these are the blue subjects here. Yeah. The subjects in blue here, these are the elective subjects. Okay. And then on the right, we have your research subjects. And I'll talk about the research subjects in a second, but let me just talk about the interaction between the core subjects and the elective subjects. So as you can see here, I have arranged all core subjects to be in the first column, except for one, which is the Introduction to Sustainable Development. It's sort of on its own here because we have 7 core subjects and we have 6 blocks in the year. Now, you have to take and pass 4 electives. In theory, the only electives that you have to sort of think very carefully about choosing is between Smart Tech and Agriculture for next year. Why? Because these 2 electives occur in the same block. And what that means is that there will be some classes that may overlap with each other, that may clash, right? Not too many, there will only be 1 or 2 classes, but that is something that someone should consider if you are interested both in Smart Tech and Agriculture. Those are the subjects that you may need to think a bit more strongly about, or we will need to take some precautions with regards to the timetabling. And you'll see that later in a second. Anyways, for the rest of the blocks, you can see that it is quite a straightforward choice, except for block 4, where you will need to take 2 core subjects in block 4. Let me just go to the concept of what's happening for the research subjects first. You will notice that there's something called Cycle A and Cycle B. So what are they? Imagine you are coming in January next year, right? And then you tell me, Dr. Chen, I want to finish my studies in 1 year. In that case, what it means is that you have to make sure that you pass all of your core subjects. You have to select 4 out of the electives that are available here, which should be 6. And then you need to do the research subjects of Cycle A. So in Block 2, you take research methods. Block 3 and 4, you take research project 1. Block 5 and 6, you do research project 2. And what that means is, in 1 year, between January and December, you would finish 14 subjects. And you pass, and then next year you graduate. However, if you are a working adult, and you need more time, you can't do everything immediately. Maybe you only do 2 subjects per block, all right? Now, if you decide to do so, I encourage you to take your subjects in the core as well as the electives first, and then only do your research subjects later. So for example, in this scenario, maybe I will say, okay, you should only do 2 subjects per block rather than 3. In that case, you would emphasize doing, say, Earth Climate Systems and Smart Tech, Waste Management, Energy Systems, and Sustainable Forestry, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4 electives. And then what happens is that in your 6th block, you take Corporate Sustainability, you don't take Governance, but you take research methods of Cycle B. And what happens then is that if you think about what happens in 2026, you would take research project 1, Cycle B, and research project 2, Cycle B in 2026, right? Because Cycle A and Cycle B are rolling subjects. This makes also more sense if you are coming in September. So let's say the same student says, I can't start in January, I want to start in September, but I still want to finish in 1 year. Well, if you come in September of 2025, then you take the research methods, research project 1 and research project 2 of Cycle B, and obviously they roll around to 2026 and they finish in 1 year. So they complete by around August, if I'm not yet, end of August of 2026. Okay. Now at this point, I'm going to pause and ask whether people have any questions about how we structure the subject. Don't worry about the weekly timetable yet. I'll come to that in a second. But is everybody comfortable with the subject structure of the MSDM? Okay, let me just check chat. Okay. I don't hear
Professor.
Oops, hello?
Yeah, Professor, this is Lim here.
Hello, yeah.
Okay, I would like to check if it is possible to select more elective subjects than 4.
Okay. That.
Because
Well,
they all of them looks very interesting.
So the official answer I am forced to give you is unfortunately no, within the program. And the reason for that is the university is quite strict about resource utilization, to use a polite phrase. But what can happen is that if you finish all of your subjects, we can have I'm being recorded, so we can have a sort of arrangement where students who have finished all subjects and who are therefore going to pass, there is a gap. There's a time gap between the time that they finish everything and the time that they graduate. And during that period, they are still students. And what we can do is that we can allow you to take the extra classes for the subjects that you may be interested in, but they will not count towards your grades. Does that make sense?
Okay, clear.
Because,
Thank you.
yeah, officially, you can only take 4 electives. That's sort of the rules, so to speak.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Now, this is not Cambridge University where you can attend all classes at will. So, that's the system we have here. Right? Not for the lack of trying, I may add. So, yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. So I hope that means everybody is sort of comfortable with the structure of the program. Now let me go into the details about what a block would look like. So just a refresher, the block is the basic unit of time where we fit in all of our subjects. And I want to go through with you what a block looks like when it comes to the time that is required, the time commitment that is required from students, right? So students sometimes ask me, how many hours of classes do I have in a week? And I always have to explain to them, it's a bit of a tricky question for me to answer because of the way in which we structure our program. So what you are seeing here right now is the structure of what classes exist within a block. On the first column, you see the weeks. Remember, I said there are 7 weeks. So week number 8 is just a holiday. Week number 0 is also a holiday, but it's where the orientation happens, right? The first 4 columns refer to Saturday. The next 4 columns refer to Sunday. All right. We have divided each day into morning, afternoon, and evening slots. I'm sorry for all the terminology, but this is how we run the program. Each slot is worth 2 hours of teaching with a 15-minute break in between. So for example, if you look at the morning session, it's 9:30 to 11:45. So if you do the maths, that's 2 hours, 15 minutes. Okay, so on and so forth. Between morning and afternoon, you have a 1 hour break. Between afternoon and evening, you have a 30-minute break. So that's for lunch and lunchtime and tea time, if you want to use the break terms. As you can see, there are different colors here, which refers to the different subjects. And remember, in my example, block 1 has 3 subjects, 4 if you include the research project 1. Okay, so if you look at this yearly calendar here, you see that there are 4 subjects here. And therefore, you will see on this chart, there are 4 colors. Red for ECS, purple for RP1, blue for IoT, and green for energy. Now, the reason why it is energy rather than agriculture in this chart is because this is the actual calendar for block 1 of 2024. The previous calendar I'll show you, this is the calendar for 2025. And I swapped energy for agriculture subjects for various reasons. Right? But what I'm trying to point out here is that imagine if you were a student and you told me that you would like to do Earth climate systems, as well as both electives that are on offer in Block 1. So both electives in this year would be IoT and energy. For you guys who are coming in next year, hopefully, the 2 electives would be Smart Tech and Agriculture. Well, what would happen then is that you would be effectively having classes for all of the slots that are in red, green, and blue. All right. Green, if you just imagine, it would be agriculture subject, for example. And as you can see here, for the 2 electives in this year, block 1, we had 3 classes where the elective subjects were overlapping. All right. In other words, there are 6 hours of learning where you would have to choose to join one or the other subject in person if you choose to join it in person. I'll come back to why I use the term in person in a second, right? But my point here is, for all other blocks, we do not have any classes that clash, aside from clashing of RP1, or aside from the clashing of research subjects between Cycle A and Cycle B. Now, the reason why subjects between Cycle A and Cycle B can clash is because, by definition, a student who is taking one of the research subjects in either cycle, they can't take the subject of the other cycle. The reason for that is because you must, before you can take research project 1, you must complete research methods. Before you can do research project 2, you must complete research project 1. Okay? So, coming back to semester 1, block 1, if you are a student who's taking 3 subjects, ECS, IoT, energy, you can see that a lot of your weekends you will have classes. If you are a student that only takes 2 subjects, let's assume red and green, right? Then you will see that your schedule will be freed up a bit. Well, in this case, it's a bad example because there's a lot of blue and greens that are overlapping. But my point is that if you take fewer classes, your weekends start to free up. And this is particularly relevant for those students who have quite busy work-life schedules. If you still want to take our master's program, feel free to do so, because what you can do is that you take 1 subject every block, and you need to do 14 subjects, which means that you would, rather than have 3 subjects in a block, or 3 to 2 subjects in a block, 14 subjects in a year, you do 14 subjects within 2.5 years. And effectively, you only have 1 color on your schedule, your block schedule, every block, right? So that frees up a lot of time, and it enables you to have a better work-life balance, for example. You will still be considered a full-time student, because we don't make the distinction between students who compact all their classes versus students who have a freer timetable within this window of time. All right. Some blocks, as you can see here, are relatively free. Some blocks are a bit more packed for various reasons. Okay, so just a note for all students: if you are taking 3 subjects a block because you want to finish quickly, just be advised that in some of the more intense blocks with more intense subjects, you may be having classes all day, every day of every weekend for 7 weeks. Okay. Any questions about this for now? So I've gone through the schedule for the year. Now I've gone through the schedule. What does a block look like? Usually I would only know the schedule. Usually we would only arrange the schedule of a block about 1.5 months before the block starts. So at the moment, I'm a bit late. We have not yet fixed the block schedule for block 1 of 2025, but we're almost there. Right? So that's why I'm showing you the schedule for this year's blocks rather than next year's blocks. Okay. Now, going to the delivery modes, right? The reason why clashing classes for the elective subjects are not as bad as it could be is because in all of our classes, we actually record all lectures as well as all tutorials, right? Every learning session is recorded and posted online in the online learning platform. So in Sunway University, we use a Blackboard program called eLearn. So eLearn is where we put all of our materials. And the reason we do that, or we have to do that in a way, is because we actually run two different modes in the MSDM. There's the conventional mode and the ODL mode, right? So what is actually happening is that on the one hand, if you sign up for the MSDM conventional mode, you will be expected to attend classes when we have live classes. So let's if we have in this schedule here, if we have hybrid or in-person classes, you are expected to come to campus. If you sign up for the ODL mode, on the other hand, you can do all of your learning online, sort of at your own pace, aside from the assessments, which are at definite timelines. So in other words, let me just try to paraphrase what I'm saying. If you sign up for the conventional mode of the MSDM, you would be expected to follow conventional rules. We have classes at certain times that we expect you to attend in person. Even for the online classes that we have live, we expect conventional students to attend live. If you're an ODL student, on the other hand, all of these classes will be recorded. Some classes will even be pre-recorded, and you'll be able to view them and learn at your own pace, aside from the fact that you have to keep pace with the schedule of the assessments, right? So the assessments don't wait for anyone. When there's a deadline for assessment, you have to do the deadline. But ODL students have more freedom. You can choose when you want to watch the recording to get your classes. Okay. We still actually encourage ODL students to still, if you can, if you live somewhere near the university, to come for live classes, although you sign up for ODL, or to attend online classes live, on live as it happens, just as this session is happening. But if not, the ODL students have the understood right to watch videos and learn through those videos only. Now, the interesting thing about this is that because the conventional students and the ODL students are taking the same class, it does mean that conventional students, the bonus that you get from this is that you can now therefore watch the same material that your ODL classmates are watching. So all of our lectures are recorded. Our tutorials, the online tutorials especially, are recorded. So you have the benefit of all of the materials being available for you online. Okay. If you are Malaysian, really these two modes don't really have much of a difference. I shouldn't use the term Malaysian. I should use the term if you are living in a close proximity to Sunway University. I strongly recommend that you take ODL for the convenience, because then you don't have to worry if you're ill or you need to take time off. You don't have to inform me as a lecturer. If you are a conventional student, in theory, you do have to inform us about why you're taking time off if you don't attend classes. If you are an international student, you need to decide which mode you're taking, because the ODL mode does not give you a student visa. So in other words, if you're an international student and you're planning to stay in Malaysia for your studies, then unfortunately you must take the conventional MSDM, because that's how you will get the student visa. At open ODL students do not get student visas to stay in Malaysia. All right. Any questions about this before I move on? The two different modes that we have. All right. I don't see anything. So let me then move on to the delivery of our lectures. Because I mentioned this, we have recorded lectures, we have hybrid lectures. So let me just talk about two extremes of how we deliver material within the subject. So on the one hand, we have lecturers. The best example is Professor Agamutu, who teaches waste management. He likes making pre-recorded lectures. So most of his lectures are pre-recorded. He puts them online and he expects you to watch them. And then he will have live tutorials in person, either online or on campus, and the live online tutorials are recorded. Okay, so in other words, type A is closer to what you expect from a traditional ODL program. So Prof. Agamutu will have 12 hours of lectures that he puts online that are pre-recorded, but he will expect you to attend tutorials, If you are an ODL student, then you take the online tutorials, which are recorded. If you are the conventional students, he will expect you to be on campus for his in-person tutorials, which are not recorded. Okay, so he has two sets of tutorials. Type B is the type that I prefer, which is I give live lectures on campus that are streamed online as well as recorded. So ODL students don't have to attend my lectures. Feel free to do so if you are in the area, but I will have the recorded lectures posted online after I've done them in person. And then for my tutorials, I have tutorials that are live online and recorded. So I don't have in-person tutorials. They are all online and they are recorded. So conventional students who come from my class, they see me face-to-face during my hybrid lectures, right? But not during my tutorials. For Prof. Agamutu, you will see him live during your tutorial sessions, but you won't see him live during his pre-recorded lectures. In either case, all of our assessments are online. Okay, and I'll talk about the types of assessments in a second, but this is how we have structured the delivery of our material. And different lecturers can have anything in between. So some of their classes may be pre-recorded, some of their classes may be hybrid. So just to warn you, me and Agamutu are sort of the extremes of this kind of delivery. Other lecturers can be somewhere in between. Right? So half of their lectures will be pre-recorded, the other half might be live lectures. So that is how we deliver our material. So just again, some terminology here, in case someone's lost. Traditional teaching involves live teaching face-to-face, right? That's the traditional classroom. Online teaching refers to, ODL, the Malaysian definition of open distance learning is online and pre-recorded, right? And what we are doing is effectively hybrid. So we have classes that cover these two axes of options, right? So for example, if you are live and online, that would be some of our tutorial classes. Face-to-face and pre-recorded is effectively you coming here to watch a movie, right? Which we don't really have much of those, but that's what we mean by the axis of students coming face-to-face, watching a pre-recorded session. The column on the right is just a note about the mark scheme. There's a term for this. It's just slipped my mind. The levels of the grading that we use in Sunway for your grades. Oh, the main thing behind it is just to warn you that passing marks for a master's program in Malaysia is 60 marks, not 40 marks, right? Just added that in for people's information. All right, so just a bit about the history of the program. So we have run this program since 2019. We started with the conventional program, and then we brought in the ODR program about 3 years later in 2022. Currently, we have graduated over 160 students, and currently we have about 75 students who are active. And as you can see in terms of our age chart, we actually have a plurality of students that are sort of in their 30s and 40s rather than the traditional majority of young students that perhaps some other master's program may have. In terms of entry requirements, we do require a CGPA of around 2.5. That is sort of the minimum CGPA that we expect with a bachelor's degree. We also have the requirement that you must have some sort of English proficiency certification. TOEFL, IELTS, or I think there should be a MUET in here somewhere. Those are the two main things that are requirements. Now, the type of bachelor's degree that we require from you, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the field of management or business, although that helps. Even if you have a bachelor's degree in some other field, what we would then take into account is your working experience. So if you have about 2 to 5 years of working experience, especially if you can mention or you can described that you were in a managerial role of some sort. Doesn't have to be a high managerial role. It can be just managing one or two people. That would help us pass you for the entry requirements. Okay, but having a bachelor's degree is a definite. If you don't have a bachelor's degree and you wish to join our program, do contact us, because there are other alternatives that we can talk about in terms of how you can enter our program. And this is referring to things like Appel, accreditation of prior experiential learning. But I won't go into that for now. Now, in terms of the fees, what we have here is that the fee structure is divided into blocks, and the blocks are designed in such a way that they pre-assume that the student in question is planning to finish in 1 year, right? So obviously, if you are taking more than a year, then the payment structure will be slightly different, because we charge you the tuition fee by the number of subjects you take. So we charge you 3,009 per subject that you are taking. Obviously, if you're only taking one subject in a block, then the amount you'll be charged is 3,009 in the block, right? So this what you're seeing here is a simulation of a student trying to finish in 1 year. Okay. The other thing to note is the bursary system. Now, we have this bursary deduction of 8,000. This is referring to the concept that any student who joins our program, if you don't have a better bursary or better scholarship, you automatically are given a bursary of 8,000 ringgit. So the fee that you see here of 5,006, that's not the actual fees. The actual fees is actually 48,000, 48,300 ringgit to be precise. And that is because you have that original number minus by 8,000. Okay. In terms of what other bursaries are available, so the basic bursary of 8,000, that's one. But the two other bursary are the alumni bursary. So if you are a graduate of Sunway University for any program, or Sunway College specifically for the VU BB degree program, I forgot to find out what BB stands. Bachelor's of Business. Then you are qualified to get 30% off your tuition fees. If you are a recent graduate within the last 2 years, and you have a bachelor's that has a CGPA of 3.5, then you actually get 50% off your tuition fees. So this is pretty substantial, this merit scholarship things. Unfortunately, this is only applicable to a timeline of 2 years. Now, in practice, so far, we haven't had an issue with precise timing. So let's say you are applying to join in September next year, let's say, and you graduated 2 years ago in January of 2 years ago. Technically speaking, that's more than 2 years, but so far we are going by calendar years, right? So in next year, 2025, we will just accept any graduate certificate that is up to 2023. Right? Okay, so that's for those of you who are recent graduates from a bachelor's program. Unfortunately, we can only look at undergraduate certs. Some people have asked whether or not those who have taken some other master's degree with a CGPA, whether that counts for the merit scholarship. Unfortunately, the answer is no. All right. Again, not for the lack of trying. So those are the available financial help that exists. Yeah, I think that's the end of my program. And just this is a photo of the first cohort of our MSDM students. There were about 70 odd students in the first cohort. So, and that's me there with Professor Jeff Sachs. So, thank you all for your attention. And I hope to hear and see you all, or meet you all soon. Any questions you would have that I can help you answer. So, open for questions. Right. I don't hear anything, and I don't see anything in chat. Let me just. Okay. So is everything all right? I guess everyone understands generally the program structure, how we do things, what is available, so on and so forth.
Hello, my name is Norazlina.
Hello, no, Azlina. No, Azlina. Yeah.
Yes, I'm planning to actually join the program early next year.
Okay.
I just wonder, I mean, there's a January intake and March intake.
Yeah.
So since I'm working, um, um, how long actually it takes to process the admission? Because I know you guys need the certificates, the CVs, and also the letters from, for because I've been working, so
Mhm.
letters from the employee. How long it takes? Because for me, now is already November.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit too late. I think for me to prepare everything if I want to join in January. So
Mhm.
March shall be more possible timeline. So
Okay. I mean, just to say, I don't think it's that big of for Malaysian students. Usually, we can process applications quite fast. So my understanding is that we only need maybe about 2 weeks.
okay.
Yeah. So for because you don't have any visa requirements and stuff like
No
that.
need, no need, no need.
So you can actually apply middle of December, and we could still take you in for the January intake. Because and this is not. I need to change my timetable here. We are actually starting quite late in January this year. In fact, we
Ah,
start in the middle of January, not the 8th of
okay,
January. Yeah,
okay,
like the 8th.
okay. Thank you for clarification.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, I know if you want to start in March, it's also okay, no problem. But I mean, I would recommend starting in January for two reasons. And this is not me. This is not me tooting my own horn. This is something that students have told me to tell students in the future, which I'm going to tell you now. Apparently, taking the Earth Climate Systems class at the start of your MSDM is a lot better than taking it at the end of your MSDM. So if you look at the timetable, if you start in March, right, what will happen is that you will take Earth Climate Systems, the class that I teach, at the end of your first year. Make sense? Because you look, it will be in January 2026. And I've been told that students say that that is actually it's much better to take ECS as a first subject. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay.
And it's true in the sense that it is indeed correct that if you look at the structure of the core subjects, we have actually arranged it in such a way that the important subjects come first
Uh huh, uh
ish.
huh.
I mean, it's not perfect because there are various reasons. But the main idea is that when we designed this project, so when we designed the syllabus, we designed it sort of January to December because it's obvious, right? But we have rolling intakes, so it's you can take all core subjects and all electives in any order, aside from the research subjects, which have a certain order. But the advice that some of your seniors, you can ask them, they may tell you is that it's better to start in January in general.
All right. Thank you. Very good advice. A very good tip too.
Sure, yeah, no worries. Right.
Professor,
Yes.
maybe can I just try to understand normally per batch how many graduates or a student that someone is taking in on
So
average?
for the intake, right? So on average in a year, we have around 45 students new in throughout the year. And for some reason, we tend to have, let's say, 15, 15, and then 20 students. So, or maybe less, 12, 12, and then 20, 25 students. So September intakes tends to be the highest. I chalk it up to the fact that there's a bigger gap between March and September. But yeah, so every year the intake is around 45 for the last 4 years. And the intake itself, it depends. The first two, as maybe Noah Azlina has mentioned, there's some students who start earlier, some students start later. So between the two intakes will be about 20 something, and then September will be another 20 something.
Okay, so there is a combination of conventional and online learning
Yes.
total
So if
numbers.
you're talking about the
Okay.
division between ODL and conventional, it's pretty much exactly 50-50, almost. I try very hard to push it towards ODL, but it's almost 50-50. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just now you also mentioned like for the past 3 or 4 years, it's always this sorry, I haven't really studied the background, but is this MSDM has been offered for the past 3 or 4 years or even longer time?
We have been offering MSDM since 2019, so that's next year will be the 6th year, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
Understand. I just try to understand. Thank you very much.
sure. Any other questions?
I have another question,
Yeah,
Professor. I
sure.
mean, you have already around 170 graduates. May I know what type of background these people of masters taking this master program? Is it
All right.
from finance? Is it gonna from energy people, or is it gonna be manufacturing? So I'm just a bit curious.
It's quite a broad range of people from. So in terms of their expertise background, it is really a broad range. So you have people who are. Let me give you an example off the top of my head. We had a guy who works, two fellas who works in construction, right? We have ladies who are in Besar, Malaysia, for example. We have individuals from NGOs who, and then we have someone who's a bird watcher, for example, who's joined our program. So
Interesting.
in terms of their background, it's actually quite broad. What unites what unites all of them, not all of them, but most of them, is I would say that they are respectively middle managers in their respective organizations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Understand. Very clear. Thank you.
So, right.
Maybe, sorry, Professor, maybe one more question from myself.
Yeah.
Because I have just graduated from an MBA course, would you
Okay.
recommend me to pursue for this course or because it's also a master, yeah, a master
Okay. I mean,
level of, yeah.
I obviously I will be a bit biased. And the bias I would have is that if you look at these subjects, how much do you feel that your MBA course prepared you for the science of sustainability? That is only something you can answer. So the way that I would describe it is that if you're gone through an MBA, some of these subjects will be slightly easier for you, right? So finance and sustainability, corporate sustainability might be easier for you. But where you may get a lot of learning is from the Earth climate systems as well as introduction to sustainable development, as well as the electives, because I'm quite sure the MBAs don't have our range of electives.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if I can take more elective.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so this is the sort of so because we are targeting. I mean, the best answer I would give is you should have taken our masters rather than MBA, but that's a separate story. But because of that, because we are designed to compete against that. Unfortunately, there will be some overlap. That would be sure. The best way I can describe to you would be it having an MBA will make your journey easier. So, for example, then I would say that you should finish in 1 year. That's how I would describe it. Yeah. Unlike
Okay.
some of your fellow classmates who may need to take more time because they may. We have students who have never done any economics before. Students who have never done any kind of finance, and these subjects hit them very hard because they are not familiar, right? Presumably, in your MBA, you have done this. So presumably,
Yeah.
this will be easier on you. And therefore, for example, in block two, to give you an example, I assume that you have a good basis in good grounding in economics, which is in the MSDM, the economics has a reputation of being the hardest subject. Just to point out, right?
Okay. All right.
So if you have a good grounding in that, then I expect you to also take waste management and research methods, and you focus on those.
Okay. Thank you very much for your for your advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Professor Chen, I have a question.
Hello, hi.
I'm very much interested in the elective in terms of governance. Can you talk a little bit more about the sustainability and governance and pushing forward sustainability in those arenas?
Okay, so just to clarify, because governance is quite a big word, the governance that we are teaching here in this subject is referring specifically to political governance as well as the government governance. So the two lecturers who will be teaching this subject, one of them is a political scientist, quite a prominent one in Malaysia. The other is a very decorated former senior government servant, Tan Sri Nurul Ainur, right? So between these two lecturers, what they're going to be teaching you is about the, shall we say, the mechanism of how government works and how sustainability can be implemented under these scenarios. So from the political side, political parties, how do they, how do they take into account, how does Parliament understand sustainability, and how do they take action on that front? And then on the other side, we have Tan Sri Nurul, which she will be talking about what do government servants actually do when they get instructions from Parliament, right? Because you have the legislative side as well as the administrative side. How do these two interact when it comes to implementing sustainable initiatives? So that sort of governance. So it's not the governance of, shall we say, corporate governance. That's all in corporate sustainability and management and operations, right? Those are the corporate side. This governance is referring to the actual government.
Understood. Is there a track that also includes geopolitical?
Geopolitical, that one is a bit higher. I guess you get some of it in Introduction to Sustainable Development, but that's sort of a minor subtopic, I'm afraid. We don't go that big in terms of where our subjects are at. So I apologize for that. That's pretty. The closest you would get to is perhaps so Jeffrey Sachs, when he comes and gives his lectures, he does talk a bit about the geopolitical constraints or the geopolitical implications of some of these things related to carbon agreements, right? I don't use the various. I think he has a good bit. He has a good topic about the difference between what was the term he was using? It's an agreement versus the the Kyoto Pact versus the Paris Climate Agreement. So there's a difference between a pact and an agreement. So that sort of thing, right? At that level, yeah. So he can talk about these type of things, but it's not a specific subject that we have.
And when does he come?
So the next time he'll be coming is in early January. We don't know the exact date yet, but he'll be coming in early January in person. He comes twice a year. So he comes once around June to August. So this year it was in August, I think. And then next time he's coming is in early January.
So it's early January in terms of when you start in January, which is middle?
No. So early. So my class next year starts middle of January, and he is coming before that, most likely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
He will be giving a public lecture, so everybody is invited to that, and then we'll be organizing a class lecture for just the students of the Jeffrey Sachs Center.
The reason I'm asking is that I'm ODL. I'll be ODL.
Yes. Okay.
And I want to come, but then I have something that I have to do, so I don't come twice.
Yeah,
So
I understand. Yeah, so if it helps you, we have narrowed down the timeline to. I don't want to promise too much, but it's before December. It's before January 20th, and it's after January 1st. There's that period, that's window.
Right. Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, thank you all for your attention, I guess, and hope to see those of you who are joining up for our program. Hope to see you very soon. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.